The massive Imperial ship emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter, its dark metal hull reflecting the distant sunlight. On board, High Commander Dax smiled confidently as his vessel approached the blue planet called Earth. His mission was simple: add another species to the Empire's vast collection of subordinate races. The command center of United Earth Defense Force buzzed with activity. Admiral James Miller stood calmly, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the main screen. The alien vessel was larger than anything humans had built, but that didn't worry him. 20 years of military service had taught him that size wasn't everything. "Sir, they're broadcasting," reported Lieutenant Mark from his console. "It's being transmitted on all frequencies." Miller nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing a tall, gray-skinned alien in an ornate uniform. High Commander Dax spoke in perfect English, courtesy of the Empire's universal translators. "People of Earth, I represent the Galactic Empire, rulers of 10,000 worlds. Your planet has been chosen to join our magnificent civilization. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our power. Submit, and you will enjoy the benefits of imperial rule." The control room remained silent. Miller looked at the alien commander and allowed himself a small smile. "High Commander, we appreciate your offer. However, before you make any decisions, we believe you should review some information about our species." Dax blinked his large eyes. This wasn't the fearful response he had expected. "Information? Your primitive species has barely reached your own moon. What could we possibly need to know?" "Lieutenant, send them the package," Miller ordered. Mark pressed a few buttons. "Historical records transmitted, sir." On the Imperial ship, Dax's advisors began reviewing the data. Their confident expressions slowly changed to confusion, then concern. "Sir," one of them said, "you need to see this." The records showed battles throughout human history, ancient armies clashing with swords and shields, massive naval engagements, world wars that engulfed entire continents. The speed of human technological advancement was alarming. From basic firearms to nuclear weapons in less than 200 years. "High Commander," Miller continued, "humanity has never been part of an interstellar empire. We've never fought aliens. All our wars have been against ourselves. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of combat against opponents who think exactly like we do." Dax frowned. "Are you threatening the Empire?" "Not at all. We're warning you. Humans don't want war, but we're very, very good at it. We've had a lot of practice." The data continued flowing to the Imperial ship. Detailed analysis of guerrilla warfare, resistance movements, asymmetric combat. Countless examples of smaller forces defeating larger, better-equipped armies through cunning and determination. "Sir," another advisor whispered to Dax, "their weapons technology is advancing even as we watch them. These readings show significant improvements just in the past month." Miller could see the uncertainty growing on the alien commander's face. "We're willing to open diplomatic relations with the Empire. We'd be happy to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation. But if you're planning to conquer Earth, we have a simple suggestion. Run." Dax's fingers tightened on his command chair. No species had ever dared to speak to the Empire this way. But something in the human's calm voice made him pause. These weren't the words of a primitive race trying to bluff their way out of submission. This was the quiet confidence of a people who knew exactly what they were capable of. "We will consider your response," Dax said finally. "Expect further communication from the Empire." The transmission ended. Miller turned to his crew, who had watched the exchange in tense silence. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Begin Operation Hedgehog. If they decide to test us, I want to make sure they understand exactly why we warned them." As the Imperial ship moved away from Earth, Dax studied the historical records again. One phrase kept appearing in different forms throughout human military history: "Never fight a war on two fronts." These humans, it seemed, had learned their lessons in blood. "Send a message to Imperial Command," he told his communications officer. Tell them Tell them we need to reassess our approach to this sector. On Earth, Miller watched the alien ship disappear into hyperspace. He knew this wasn't over, but at least they had given the Empire something to think about. Sometimes, the best way to prevent a war was to make sure your opponent understood exactly what they were getting into. The Imperial Palace on Centauri Prime buzzed with activity as military advisors rushed through its gleaming halls. Inside the main strategic chamber, High Commander Dax stood before the Imperial Council, his usual confidence replaced by careful concern. "What do you mean, they sent more data?" asked Council Leader Rex, his scaled fingers drumming on the marble table. "The humans have transmitted detailed military records," Dax replied. "Far more extensive than our initial assessment. Our analysts are disturbed." The massive screen behind him lit up with images and videos from Earth's history. The council members watched in silence as scenes of human warfare played out before them. "This first sequence is from something they call World War II," Dax explained. "Note how they adapted their tactics daily. Weapons that proved effective one week were countered the next. Their rate of military innovation under pressure is unprecedented." An analyst named Paul stepped forward, his voice steady but concerned. "What's most alarming is their approach to asymmetric warfare. When faced with superior forces, humans don't surrender. They get creative." The display showed guerrilla tactics, resistance movements, and improvised weapons. Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats as they watched smaller forces systematically dismantle larger, better-equipped armies. "They sent us this data voluntarily?" Rex asked. "Yes," Dax replied. "They call it a courtesy briefing. But watch this next part." The screen showed modern military exercises, orbital defense platforms, energy weapons, and something the humans called adaptive swarm technology. Their ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but moved with surprising agility. "This footage is from just last week," Paul added. "Their rate of technological advancement is concerning. They've developed countermeasures to weapons they've never even encountered." A junior council member leaned forward. "Surely they can't match our numbers. The Empire spans thousands of worlds." "Numbers don't always determine victory," Dax said quietly. "Look at this historical battle they included. Thermopylae. 300 defenders held off an army of thousands. The humans study these battles, learn from them. They've turned warfare into a science." The next images showed Earth's military production capabilities. Factories that could be converted from civilian to military use in days. Stockpiles of resources. Training facilities on every continent. They'd been preparing, Rex realized. Not for us specifically, but they've been getting ready for something like this. "Yes," Dax confirmed. "And there's more. They included psychological warfare studies. Their soldiers are trained to operate independently if command structures fail. Each unit can function alone or coordinate with others seamlessly." The council watched as more data scrolled past. Combat engineering, space warfare doctrine, planetary defense strategies. The humans had thought of everything, planned for countless scenarios. "They fight differently than any species we've encountered," Paul explained. "Most civilizations develop weapons to prevent war. Humans develop weapons because they expect war. They don't hope for peace. They prepare for conflict while working for peace." Rex stood slowly, his ceremonial robes shifting. "What do you suggest, High Commander?" The humans included a message with this data. It reads, "We prefer friends to enemies, but we're prepared for either. Choose wisely." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire had conquered many worlds, but always through quick, overwhelming force. These humans were offering a glimpse of a very different kind of conflict. "There's one more thing," Dax added. Their Admiral Miller sent a personal note. He referenced something from their history, the Vietnam War. A superior force with advanced technology was defeated by a smaller force that understood the terrain and was willing to pay any price for victory. "And we would be fighting them on their home ground," Rex mused. Yes, their final message was simple. This is what we do to ourselves. Imagine what we'll do to an outside threat. The council leader looked around the chamber, seeing the concern on every face. The Empire had never received such a comprehensive warning before. Most species either submitted or fought foolishly. These humans were different. They were offering peace while systematically demonstrating why war would be a mistake. Continue monitoring, Rex ordered finally, and begin analyzing options for diplomatic relations. Sometimes, the wise choice is to make allies instead of subjects. As the council dispersed, Dax studied the final image the humans had sent. Earth at night, its cities gleaming like stars, its orbital defenses barely visible but ever present. It wasn't just a picture, it was a message. We are here, we are ready, and we are not afraid. Commander Robert Wilson stood on the bridge of the Earth-shipped Deterrent, watching as his small fleet of 5 vessels moved into position. The location was neutral space, halfway between Earth and the nearest Imperial border. Behind him, 2 Imperial observers stood silently, their expressions unreadable. "All ships report ready, sir," Lieutenant Dan reported from his station. "The Empire's observation vessels are in position at the safe distance we specified." Wilson nodded. "Begin the demonstration." The Earth fleet suddenly split apart, each ship moving in a different direction. To the Imperial observers, it looked like chaos. But Wilson knew better. This was the dance they had practiced for months. First sequence. Swarm tactics, Wilson announced calmly. The Earth ships, small and agile compared to Imperial vessels, began weaving complex patterns. Their movements seemed random until suddenly they converged on a single point, weapon systems powered but not firing. Just as quickly, they scattered again, reforming in a different configuration. One of the Imperial observers, Officer Green, made notes on his tablet. "Impressive coordination," he muttered. Second sequence, adaptive shielding, Wilson continued. The Earth-shipped shields flickered and changed, adjusting their frequencies in perfect synchronization. Each vessel's defense system learned from the others, creating an interlocked network of protection. "Notice how each ship's shield complements the others," Wilson explained. "Any attack that breaks through one layer teaches the entire network how to defend against it." The Imperial observers exchanged glances. Their own ships used standardized shields, effective but predictable. This was something new. Third sequence, Ghost Protocol. Suddenly, the Earth ships seemed to multiply. Holographic duplicates appeared everywhere, each one indistinguishable from the real vessels. The Imperial sensors couldn't tell which were real and which were fake. "Our engineers developed this after studying old naval warfare," Wilson said, "particularly submarine tactics. In space, like underwater, the enemy can't fight what they can't find." Officer Blue, the second Imperial observer, spoke for the first time. "These are impressive tricks, Commander, but surely they wouldn't work against the Empire's superior numbers." Wilson smiled. "Let's address that." Fourth sequence, Multiplication Doctrine. The 5 Earth ships split up again, but this time, smaller vessels emerged from their hulls. Dozens of combat drones deployed, each one armed and capable of independent operation. "Every Earth ship is a carrier," Wilson explained. "Every carrier is a weapons platform. Every weapons platform is a command center. There is no head to cut off, no single point of failure." The drones demonstrated complex attack patterns, then smoothly reintegrated with their motherships. The Imperial observers' faces showed growing concern. Final sequence, Wilson announced. Adaptive response. Without warning, one of the Earth ships fired a low power beam at another. Instead of raising shields, the target ship absorbed the energy, its hull glowing briefly. Then it redirected the power, using it to boost its own systems. "We don't just defend against attacks," Wilson said quietly. "We learn from them, adapt to them, use them." The demonstration concluded with the Earth fleet reforming into its original formation. The Imperial observers looked at their data tablets, their hands slightly shaking. "One more thing," Wilson added. "Everything you've seen today, it's all last year's technology. Care to guess what we're working on now?" Officer Green cleared his throat. "Commander, your fleet's capabilities are noteworthy. But surely you understand that the Empire's resources would be wasted in a conflict neither of us wants." Wilson interrupted smoothly. "We showed you this demonstration not to threaten, but to explain. Humanity doesn't want to fight the Empire. But if we must, we will bring everything we have learned from thousands of years of warfare. Every bitter lesson, every hard-won insight, every tactic paid for in blood. We will use them all." The observers nodded slowly. As they prepared to return to their ship, Officer Blue turned back. "Your people fight unlike any we have encountered." "We know," Wilson replied. "That's what we've been trying to tell you. We've spent our entire history fighting ourselves. Now imagine what we could accomplish as allies instead of enemies." As the Imperial vessel departed, Wilson watched the stars through his view-screen. He hoped the Empire would understand the message behind today's demonstration. Earth's fleet wasn't just showing off its capabilities. It was offering a choice. The Empire could face these weapons in battle, or they could help develop them as partners. The choice, as always, was theirs. In the Imperial War Room, Admiral Vex slammed his fist on the holographic table. "These humans mock us with their warnings. We are the Empire. We do not back down from primitive species." The Emergency War Council had been in session for hours. Despite the recommendations from both High Commander Dax and the observation team, a powerful faction within the Empire pushed for immediate military action. "Our fleet outnumbers theirs 100-1, Vex continued. "All this talk of their special tactics and adaptive technology, it's nothing compared to Imperial might." High Commander Dax stood quietly in the corner, watching his fellow officers ignore every warning sign. "The humans aren't threatening us," he said. "They're trying to prevent unnecessary bloodshed." Silence. Vex turned to the Emperor's representative. "My lord," give the order. "Let us show these humans the true power of the Empire." Meanwhile, on Earth, General Thomas Anderson walked through the underground command center of the Global Defense Network. Screens showed Imperial ships gathering at the edge of the solar system. Their numbers were growing by the hour. "They're not listening to us, are they?" asked Colonel Frank, studying the tactical displays. Anderson shook his head. "Some people can only learn the hard way. Activate Protocol Watchdog. Move our stealth satellites into position." Across Earth, military installations hummed with activity. Civilian ships were quietly evacuated from space, weapons platforms powered up, and hidden defense systems came online. Everything was happening according to plans developed over decades. Back in the Imperial War Room, Vex outlined his invasion strategy. "We'll strike with overwhelming force. 3 waves of ships, targeting their major military installations. They'll surrender within hours." "And if they don't?" Dax asked quietly. "Then we'll show them why the Empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years." The Emperor's representative nodded slowly. "Proceed with the attack, Admiral Vex. The Empire's honor must be maintained." As Vex strode out to prepare his fleet, Dax approached the representative. "My lord, please, the humans aren't like other species we've conquered. They think differently, fight differently. Are you afraid of these primitives, High Commander?" "No, my lord. I'm afraid we're about to learn why they warned us to run." On Earth, Anderson received the final confirmation. The Imperial fleet was moving into attack position. "They're really going to do it," Frank said, shaking his head. "After everything we showed them." Anderson activated the Global Command Channel. "All units, this is General Anderson. The Empire has chosen to ignore our warnings. Implement Defense Plan Echo. Remember your training. Remember what's at stake. And remember, we tried to prevent this." Across the planet, military commanders acknowledged the order. Soldiers moved to their positions, ships powered up their engines, and weapon systems came online. Years of preparation were about to be tested. In space, Admiral Vex stood proudly on his flagship's bridge. Launch the first wave. Show these humans the futility of resistance. 1,000 Imperial ships surged forward, their weapons charged. Behind them, thousands more waited for the order to attack. Vex smiled, imagining how quickly the humans would surrender when faced with such overwhelming force. In Earth's command center, Anderson watched the Imperial fleet approach. They really don't understand what they're getting into, do they? No, sir, Frank replied. Should we send one last warning? Anderson considered it for a moment. No, we've warned them enough. Sometimes the only way to teach a lesson is to let someone make their mistake. He pressed a button on his command console. All units, prepare for enemy contact. Execute defensive protocols at will. As the Imperial fleet moved closer to Earth, hidden sensors tracked their every move. Automated defense systems calculated firing solutions. Special forces teams waited in stealth ships, ready to strike from unexpected angles. The Empire was about to learn why humans had warned them to run. They were about to discover why Earth's history of constant warfare wasn't a sign of weakness, but a forge that had created something the Empire had never faced before. An enemy that had spent thousands of years preparing for this exact moment. The first shots were about to be fired, and only one side truly understood what was about to happen. Admiral Vex watched confidently as his first wave of ships entered Earth's orbit. Begin the attack pattern. Target their major military installations. The Imperial fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their massive ships dwarfing anything humans had built. But as they approached firing range, something strange happened. Sir, we're losing contact with our forward scouts, reported an Imperial officer. How? There are no enemy ships in range. Suddenly, space itself seemed to come alive. Hundreds of previously invisible defense platforms materialized around the Imperial fleet. Earth's primitive technology had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for this moment. In Earth's command center, General Anderson gave a quiet order. Activate the web. Streams of energy shot between the defense platforms, creating a complex network that trapped segments of the Imperial fleet. The massive enemy ships found themselves unable to maneuver effectively in the confined space. Impossible, Vex shouted as his ship's sensors were overwhelmed. Their technology shouldn't be capable of this. The next phase began. Smaller Earth vessels emerged from hidden positions, moving with impossible agility between the larger Imperial ships. They weren't trying to destroy the enemy vessels. They were hurting them, forcing them into predetermined kill zones. Sir, Frank reported to Anderson, Ghost Squadron's report ready. Execute. Human ships began using their holographic technology in ways the Empire had never imagined. They created false targets that drew Imperial fire, then used the enemy's own energy weapons against them, reflecting the beams back through carefully positioned mirrors in space. On his flagship, Vex watched in horror as his carefully planned formation fell apart. Launch the second wave. Overwhelm them with numbers. But as the next wave of Imperial ships approached, they faced a new problem. The humans had seeded their orbital space with millions of tiny drones. Each one was barely larger than a basketball, but they moved in perfect coordination, creating an ever-shifting maze that confused Imperial targeting systems. Their tactics, Dax observed from the Imperial Command Center. They're not trying to match our strength, they're negating it. Earth's defense wasn't just about weapons, it was about controlling the battlefield itself. Every move the Imperial ships made had been anticipated, every strategy countered before it began. Sir, an Imperial officer shouted, our ships in Sector 7, they're just disappearing. Special Earth forces, using technology developed from their Ghost protocol, had perfected the art of spaceboarding. Imperial crews found their ships being taken from within while they were still trying to fight external enemies. Anderson watched the tactical display as the battle unfolded. Begin Phase 3. Earth's main fleet finally revealed itself, but not where the Empire expected. They emerged from behind Earth's moon, having used its shadow to mask their energy signatures. Instead of engaging directly, they launched precision strikes at key points in the Imperial formation. They're not fighting fair. Vex raged as another squadron reported heavy losses. No, Dax said quietly. They're fighting smart. This is what they tried to warn us about. The battle continued for hours, but it wasn't the quick victory the Empire had expected. Every time they adapted to one human tactic, 3 more appeared. The humans fought like they had been preparing for this exact battle their entire history. In the end, Vex was forced to order a retreat. His first wave was in shambles, the second wave had taken heavy losses, and the third wave never even entered the battle. Status report. Anderson commanded as the Imperial ships fled. Minimal losses on our side, sir, Frank responded. Most of our advanced systems weren't even revealed. We fought them off using mostly defensive tactics and older technology. Anderson nodded. Send a message to their command. The same warning as before. Run. In the Imperial War Room, Vex faced harsh questioning from the Emperor's representative. How? The representative demanded. How could this happen? Dax stepped forward. Because we didn't listen. They tried to tell us. Every warning, every demonstration. They weren't boasting. They were trying to prevent this. As damage reports flooded in, the Empire began to realize a terrible truth. They hadn't just lost a battle. They had discovered that everything they thought they knew about warfare might be wrong, and the humans had only used a fraction of their capabilities. The Imperial Grand Council chamber was silent as Admiral Vex's defeat played out on the massive holographic display. Every council member watched as human forces systematically dismantled what should have been an overwhelming Imperial attack. Play it again, ordered the Emperor's chief strategist. Focus on their defensive patterns. The scene replayed, showing how Earth's forces had turned space itself into a weapon. Imperial ships, despite their superior firepower and numbers, had been outmaneuvered at every turn. We lost 2,000 ships, Vex reported, his voice hollow. Against a force 1/10 our size. High Commander Dax stepped forward. And according to our intelligence, they didn't even use their most advanced weapons. This was a defensive demonstration, nothing more. The Emperor's representative leaned forward. Explain. Our sensors detected energy signatures from weapons systems that were never activated. The humans showed us only what they wanted us to see. They weren't fighting to win. They were teaching us a lesson. On Earth, General Anderson sat in a briefing room with his top commanders. Holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle, with disabled Imperial ships being towed to secure locations. Their technology is impressive, Colonel Frank noted, but their tactics are predictable. They rely too much on brute force. Anderson nodded. They've never needed to fight any other way. Until now. He turned to face the gathered officers. What's the status of our advanced weapons platforms? Still untouched, sir. The Imperials never got close enough for us to need them. Back in the Imperial chamber, a new hologram appeared. A message from Earth. Admiral Miller's calm face looked at the assembled council members. I hope now you understand why we tried to warn you, he said. What you experienced was a defensive response, using only our most basic systems. We don't want to show you what a full-scale human military operation looks like. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Their entire understanding of military superiority had been shaken. Analysis suggests, Dax reported, that the humans have developed their technology specifically to counter advanced civilizations. They anticipated meeting a force like ours and prepared accordingly. How? Demanded a council member. They've never encountered alien civilizations before. They used their own history as a template. Every time a technologically superior force met a prepared defender in their past, they studied what worked and what didn't. They'd been preparing for this possibility for centuries. In Earth's orbital defense station, Anderson watched as research teams examined captured Imperial technology. Rather than destroy the enemy ships, they had disabled and captured them. adding to their understanding of Imperial capabilities. "Sir," reported a scientist, "we've already found ways to improve our shields based on their designs. Their technology is teaching us even in defeat." Anderson smiled slightly. "That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, we improve. Always." The Imperial Council's debate grew heated. Some wanted immediate revenge. Others argued for a full retreat from Earth's sector. Finally, the Emperor's representative raised his hand for silence. "Show us," he commanded, "what our long-range sensors detected but couldn't identify. The weapons they didn't use." New images appeared, showing massive structures hidden in Earth's asteroid belt, weapon platforms that dwarfed anything used in the battle, defense systems that could reshape the very fabric of space. "This," Dax said quietly, "is what they were willing to show us. Imagine what they're keeping hidden." The council chamber fell silent again. The implications were clear. The Empire hadn't just lost a battle. They had discovered a species that approached warfare in a fundamentally different way. "They're not like the others we've conquered," Dax continued. "They don't fight for glory or expansion. They fight to win, using every advantage, every trick, every lesson learned from their bloody history." On Earth, Anderson received a signal from the Imperial capital. "They're calling for a diplomatic channel," Frank reported. Anderson nodded. "Good. Maybe now they're ready to listen." He looked at the tactical display showing Earth's full military capabilities, most of which were still untested in actual combat. Sometimes the best way to avoid a war is to prove you're ready for one. The Empire had finally realized what humans had been trying to tell them. Earth wasn't just another conquest. It was a planet full of beings who had turned warfare into an art form, and they were offering peace not out of weakness, but wisdom. The Grand Meeting Hall on Neutral Space Station, Unity, hummed with tension. On one side sat the Imperial delegation, their ornate uniforms slightly less confident than before. On the other, Earth's representatives maintained the same calm demeanor they'd shown since first contact. Admiral Miller led the human delegation, with General Anderson and Commander Wilson flanking him. Across the table, High Commander Dax represented the Empire, while the Emperor's personal envoy watched carefully. "Let's be clear," Miller began. "Earth has no interest in conquest or expansion. We simply want peaceful coexistence." The Imperial envoy leaned forward. "Yet you possess weapons that could challenge the Empire's supremacy." "We possess weapons because history taught us to be prepared," Anderson corrected. "But we'd rather trade technology than deploy it in war." Dax nodded slowly. "Your defensive capabilities are impressive, but what guarantees can you offer for peaceful relations?" Miller activated a holographic display showing joint military exercises. "We propose something unprecedented: cooperation. Earth's tactical knowledge combined with Imperial resources. Together, we could defend against threats neither of us has imagined yet." The display showed human and Imperial ships maneuvering together, sharing technologies, learning from each other. It was a vision of partnership rather than dominance. "Our analysts studied your battle tactics," Dax admitted. "You could have destroyed our ships, but you chose to disable them instead. Why?" "Because dead enemies can't become friends," Miller replied simply. "Every disabled ship showed the Empire our capabilities while preserving lives on both sides." In orbit above them, Earth and Imperial ships patrolled together. The smaller human vessels darted between their larger Imperial counterparts, demonstrating how their different approaches could complement each other. "The Empire has ruled through strength for 10,000 years, the envoy stated. "Why should we change now?" Anderson gestured to the battle recordings. "Because strength isn't just about size or numbers. It's about adaptation, innovation, and wisdom. Together, we could be stronger than either of us alone." The negotiations continued for hours. Earth offered technological exchanges, joint defense initiatives, and trade agreements. The Empire, for the first time in its history, found itself negotiating with a potential ally rather than demanding submission. "There's something we still don't understand," the envoy said finally. Why did you warn us? Why not simply wait and destroy our attack fleet? Miller smiled. Because that's not who we want to be. Humans have spent enough time fighting. We've learned that preventing a war is better than winning one. Commander Wilson activated another display, showing Earth's full military capabilities, including systems the Empire hadn't even detected. The envoy's eyes widened slightly. You still haven't shown your full strength, have you? Dax asked quietly. No, Anderson confirmed. And we hope we never have to. That's the point of this alliance, to make sure neither of us needs to reveal our last resorts. The Emperor's envoy consulted with his staff, then straightened. The Empire accepts your proposal for alliance. But we have one condition. You must help us understand how you think about warfare. Your approach is unique. We'll share what we know, Miller agreed, starting with this lesson. The strongest warrior isn't the one who wins every battle, but the one who prevents unnecessary fights. The treaty was signed within hours. As the delegates prepared to return to their ships, Dax approached Miller privately. You knew, didn't you? From the very first warning, you knew how this would end. Miller nodded. We've studied every conflict in our history. The best victories are the ones where both sides walk away stronger. That's what we wanted from the beginning. Above the station, human and Imperial ships began joint maneuvers. Their different technologies and tactics merged into something new, not through conquest, but cooperation. Back on Earth, the Global Defense Council received the news with approval. Their gamble had paid off. By showing strength while offering peace, they had turned a potential devastating war into a powerful alliance. Remember this day, Anderson told his staff as they watched the combined fleet exercises. This is why we build weapons, not to use them, but to make them unnecessary. Not to win wars, but to prevent them. The Empire had learned what humans knew all along. True strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to avoid destruction. And in that understanding, both civilizations found something greater than victory. They found partnership. Earth's warning to run had transformed into an invitation to stand together, proving that sometimes the best defense isn't a weapon at all. It's the intelligence to know when not to use one.